Hello, Chem 105 students. This is Dr. Foley. Get used to this view because this is the way I'm going to videotape most of my lectures from an overhead view. I'm writing on paper. You're going to see a lot of my hands, so I guess you need to get used to that. I'm not going to generally videotape myself from standing in front of a blackboard because I think this gives you a better view of the page when it's kind of close up like this. But what I wanted to do in this video is just go through the syllabus with you before we actually meet to save a little bit of time. This is online and on Canvas, of course. You don't need to print this out. As I said in the last email, I will bring a copy for you, and you should keep this in your folder. It has all the rules, the outline of the course, what I expect of you, how we're going to go through the topics and things like that. So I'm not going to read this word for word, just point out some of the more important things. I'm new to the Fond du Lac campus. I've been teaching at UW Oshkosh for, I think this is my 11th year. So I'm kind of used to the way things go at the Oshkosh campus. I'm new to the Fond du Lac campus, but getting to know it a little bit. The little time that I will spend in my office, if you want to find me, is up on the second floor, room 204. But again, you're going to be seeing me in discussion and laboratory, and let's hope that we can stay in person the entire semester. There's a lot of rules dealing with wearing face masks and how we're supposed to disinfect the rooms and things like that. That's all contained in this syllabus here, and you can find it on the UW Oshkosh website as well. You'll see a phone number here. I won't be in that office where that phone is very often. The best way to reach me is always going to be by email. Here it is right here. If you're going to miss class or missed class because of sickness or family emergency or anything, just send an email to me and it comes right to my smartphone. So I understand that you will miss class occasionally. I hope you don't, but things happen, so we'll worry about that as it comes up. I've designated office hours from noon to 1 p.m. on Tuesdays, right before our discussion. But I saw an email recently saying that we're not going to be having in-person office hours. I'm not sure if that's exactly true or not, but we might have to do it through what's called Collaborate Ultra, which I'm still kind of learning how to use, but it's a video conferencing part of Canvas. I don't think it's terribly difficult to use. But whatever the case, let's just quickly go through this syllabus. Again, my lecture videos will be posted on YouTube, and you should just check every few days for any updated videos. I'll probably put an entire chapter's worth of videos about once a week. We're covering about 11 chapters for the whole semester. So that means just about every week there'll be a new chapter series of videos put on the Canvas website. Again, we're going to meet for discussions on Tuesdays from 1:20 to 2:50 in the first floor of the science wing of the campus, room 112. Make sure you bring a face mask to all classes, of course. We're going to have labs on Wednesday mornings from 9:10 a.m. to 12:35. I'm going to use two different rooms to split you up. I'm going to probably put 12 of you in 120 and 12 of you in 125. You will be working with a partner. So this description of this course is it's the first part of our Chem 105-106 sequence. We're going to cover a lot of different topics. Most of this course will be dealing with atomic structure, dealing with how electrons behave or how we understand electrons to be part of chemical reactions, talk about bonding concepts. The mole concept you probably talked a lot about if you ever took high school chemistry. You know, you're very familiar with what a mole is. States of matter, gases and liquids and solids, and a few other topics. You should have a basic math background. Really, a good understanding of algebra is really all you need. Again, this is for most people majoring in some sort of science or engineering, or maybe going into nursing or pre-med, things like that. Now, it's nice that we have a free textbook. It's online. It's called Chemistry Atoms First. It's the second edition. I'm not sure if I gave you the website to that, but I'll make sure you have the link to that. You could probably find it through a Google search as well. But again, I need to make sure you can get that. It's a free textbook online. Make sure you have a good calculator with scientific notation, powers, roots, and log functions. You won't be allowed to use a graphing calculator or a cell phone on quizzes and exams. So if you have one of those real fancy $100 calculators, you might want to think about just getting something like this. I just have had this for years. It's just a Texas Instruments TI-30X it's called, but it's just a, I don't know, $15 or less calculator. Contains everything you need, the log function, scientific notation, which on this one is the EE key. It can do square roots, powers. This is more than enough, and I think it's a pretty easy calculator to use. So if you can find this particular model, I would highly recommend that one. I'm not sure if we are going to supply safety goggles for you, so I will clarify that before we actually meet for lab. I know the Fox Cities campus does supply safety goggles for students, but at Oshkosh and when we have labs there, we expect the students to buy them. If you have to buy them, it's no big deal because they're only $5 or so. You might even be able to buy them through the stockroom here on campus. Some of the objectives that we're going to hopefully have you learn this semester: describe the makeup of matter in terms of its subatomic, elemental, and molecular composition. Learn a little bit about the periodic table. The quantum mechanics is a scary sounding term, but it essentially just means how do electrons behave in bonds and in atomic structure, and how do we understand electrons to behave in chemical reactions? Using atomic masses, molecular masses, and concentrations to quantify the amounts of substances. Things like molarity, molar mass, sometimes called molecular weight. These are all terms you'll become very familiar with. Describing and balancing chemical reactions. That's a big part of this course. We'll talk a lot about what are called ideal gases, the ideal gas law. You may have come across in your high school chemistry class. A lot of the topics we'll cover you've already seen in high school chemistry. We will probably just go a little bit more in depth than you may have in high school. I'm not sure, depending on if you took an AP class or not. Describe what are called intermolecular forces. That's another goal we want to have you achieve in this class. And working together with your partner or your group in discussion is also going to be a big part of this class. Each week you're going to have about 4 ways to learn chemistry, textbook homework, discussions, labs, watching lecture videos, things like that. It moves pretty quickly, so make sure you work on this class a little bit each day. Sorry if I don't have this centered exactly in the camera shot here, but I think you can see everything. Again, I'll post lectures on YouTube as a series of videos. I would recommend that you probably read the textbook first. That's outlined on the schedule and later in this syllabus. I'm going to talk about a lot of different concepts in the videos. The nice thing about videos is you can pause them, take a break, rewind, watch something again, which it does have some advantages in my opinion versus in-person class meetings. Just sitting there in a class listening to me talk at a blackboard is good. I would prefer that, but actually having a lecture video is also very helpful to most students. A big part of the class is also lab. Make sure you read this part of the syllabus. I won't go through it in too much detail right now, but you need to dress properly. That's covered in this section here. You can't bring food of any kind into lab, not even gum. We expect you to wear long pants and closed shoes, tennis shoes, boots, things like that. Don't wear flip-flops or sandals to class. You won't be allowed to take part in laboratory. If you have long hair, you make sure you tie it back. Any hanging jewelry, things like that. Just think about walking around a laboratory and not wanting to have anything caught on any equipment. So you'll want to dress appropriately for that, because it will be kind of hectic in lab with everybody running around. There are going to be pre-lab assignments for a lot of the labs. You'll see when you look on Canvas that the pre-lab is usually attached at the back, maybe the front of the reports that I've put in the lab report file on Canvas. But to make sure I'll alert you to that as well if there's a pre-lab. That's due as soon as you walk in the door every Wednesday morning. If you have any medical history, are pregnant, or have any allergies, you need to alert me preferably before the first meeting, the first lab meeting, so I can make appropriate arrangements for you. You have to stay for the entire lab period. Most people finish a little early. As long as you and your partner are finished, have handed in the pre-labs, cleaned up your lab bench and things like that, many of you will go home a little bit early on most Wednesdays. But some of the days we're going to actually do more than one lab, so you probably will be there most of the 3 hours. We're going to hopefully do at least 13 lab reports. So if we do more than 13, I will drop your lowest score, or scores, whatever adds up to 13 times 20 per lab report. So that's 260 points for the lab, which is a fair amount of your grades. So the lab is to be taken quite seriously. And it's usually the most fun part of the class anyway. So make sure you read this thoroughly. It goes over what I expect when to turn in labs. Pre-labs, lab reports are generally due the following week, unless you and your partner are confident that you are finished with the report and you want to turn it in at the end of the lab. That's fine as well. This kind of covers about how we're going to expect you to clean up the laboratory. Again, I might go through this a little bit more detail when we actually do meet for lab, about where things are, where to put chemicals, where to put waste, things like that. Discussion is the only other time we'll meet in person. This is a very important part of the class. It's generally an hour to an hour and a half session. We're going to have 90-minute sessions. I'm hoping to give you at least 10 graded discussion worksheets that you and your group will work on together. At this point, I'm not sure if a group means 2 of you or maybe 3 or 4 students together. I kind of have to see how it goes the first day, and how we can kind of move around the room and sit with each other, because we're going to be 24 students in one room. I'll try to break you up into groups of, like I said, 2 to 4 students. So I'd have to see how much room we actually will have for proper spacing and things like that. But again, you're going to work on a worksheet that I'll give you. It's essentially like a homework assignment. It's going to kind of reinforce what you learned in the lecture videos, give you a little bit of practice working on it yourself, and also helping your fellow group members. A big part of learning is helping others, so that will definitely help you. If you can explain these concepts to somebody else, it'll help you learn as well. I'm not making homework part of the grade, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do the textbook problems that I recommend. I have on Canvas, for each chapter, I went through the textbook and kind of picked out problems that I feel represent that give you good practice for learning all these different scientific chemistry concepts. So you can do as many problems as you want. The answers will be given to you. I'll either, you can send me an email or come to my office hours about, problems you may want the answers to. I'll try to post the answers to some of the problems online. I think we'll just see how that goes, and see if people really are struggling with the homework, the textbook problems, then I may have to spend more time on that during discussion. Attendance policy, this is a very important part of the class because if there's two unexcused absences from laboratory, for instance, that means you could receive an F for the class. Unexcused just means you didn't tell me where you were. You just decided not to come to class without a valid excuse. But if you have any illnesses or family emergencies and things like that, we certainly can't excuse you from that, as long as you have a legitimate excuse for missing class. The quizzes, I'm hoping to give you 4 quizzes throughout the semester. I'll probably give those to you the week before the exam just to give you a little bit of practice for what to expect on the following week's exam. They're going to be worth 20 points each. There'll be a mixture of multiple choice and short answer questions. If you're absent from class without an excuse, or you arrive after the quiz has been collected during that discussion section, then you are going to be ineligible to participate and will receive a score of 0. The exams, again, I'm hoping to give you 4 exams. There's not going to be a final exam, but I think 4 exams is enough to test you on your understanding of this material. I'm hoping to give you the exams in weeks 4, 7, 11, and either 14 or 15. Our semesters are really 14-week semesters, but if you count the number of different weeks that we have classes scheduled, it actually adds up to 15 weeks. But the actual time spent in school is 14 weeks. An exam may be made up for legitimate reasons, health-related or official university business. Hoping we don't have to do that because takes a lot of time to write these exams, so I'm hoping that everybody can take them at the scheduled time during discussion. But again, the days of the exams I'm hoping to give you are later on in this syllabus that you can read at your convenience. Academic dishonesty, make sure you read this thoroughly. It goes over all the rules for what we consider to be dishonest, cheating on exams and quizzes and things like that. The penalties for that, if you're caught, are fairly severe. So I've never had any issues with any students doing that. Canvas and email, of course we're using Canvas for keeping track of grades and organizing all our class materials. Again, we're going to probably use Collaborate Ultra a little bit, or maybe a fair amount depending on if we have to go fully online or not. But if we do use Collaborate Ultra, it will be used for office hours, maybe conducting extra discussion sections outside of the normally scheduled time. We'll kind of see how that goes as the semester progresses. At a minimum, please use Canvas to access the syllabus, watch the course videos, lecture and lab videos, keep track of your graded work, contact me if you need to contact me about questions or missing class, or contact your fellow students by email. There's going to be quite a bit of content to download after it begins. I'll be loading the lecture videos and anything that I find useful to you as the course goes. So it's important that you check into Canvas at least once a day throughout the course of the semester. The grading, again, is going to be hopefully, as indicated here, 4 exams, 100 points each. That's just about half your grade. 4 quizzes at 20 points each, about 10% of your grade. 10 discussion worksheets at 10 points each. That's about 12% of your grade. And the lab reports, 13 of them, 20 points each, about 1/3 of your grade. Here's the grading scale. It's pretty standard. We've used this for years at the Fox Cities campus as well. It's a fairly typical grading scale. If you want to move on to Chem 106, do keep in mind that we generally expect you to have a grade of C or better in this Chem 105 class. All right, what's on the next page here? This is the stuff dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, what we have to do as far as keeping safe. All of our students are required to wear an appropriate face mask that covers their mouth and nose. We're all very used to this by this point. Maintaining an appropriate physical distance. I'm not sure exactly what the physical distance that has been mandated by the school, but I'm sure it's at least 3 to 6 feet. This is very, very important here. If somebody doesn't want to wear a mask, that can cause some big problems. If a student is non-compliant with this policy and refuses to leave the class promptly when requested, I'm responsible for actually canceling the class. The student who caused the issue is going to be referred to the dean of students, and you could actually be dropped from the class for that sort of behavior. I'm sure there's going to be masks all over campus if you do forget it, so don't, I guess, drive home and pick up a mask and be late to class. There should be masks as you enter the doors. I'm assuming there will be. Disinfecting workspaces, again, we need to all use the cleaning wipes that are going to be in a canister in the room, clean the arms of the chair and the work surface, the desktop, before and probably after we have classes. You can't eat or drink of any kind in the class, not even soda and coffee anymore. So that, that kind of, that's too bad for all of us, but I'm not even sure if we can have them in the hallway on breaks and things like that. I'll let you know. This covers diversity, equity, and inclusion, just a general philosophy of the university. Again, here, eating and drinking in the classroom, it's prohibited. If you have a medical condition that requires you to eat at certain times of the day, or when you have symptoms present themselves that requires you to eat, then by all means, you need to do that, but you need to kind of let me know if you have any conditions that would require that exception. So again, review that as well. I have some basic study hints for a class like this. Obviously read the textbook chapter before watching the videos, preferably, but not an absolute requirement. You can read the textbook afterward if you would like. We all have our different way of learning, but I think reading it before and then watching me talk about these concepts is generally the best way to do it. Take notes. I know that might be kind of strange watching a video taking notes, but it sometimes just actually writing things out as you watch helps us digest this material better and generally helps students learn better if they're actually writing things out instead of just passively sitting there listening to somebody talk. I would recommend working on this course for at least an hour every day. Attempt all the suggested homework problems, as many as you can. Do more if you'd like. Form study groups, quiz each other about course content. Just practice. Let's see, weather-related cancellations you can find. Here's local radio stations and TV stations where you will be able to find generally this class cancellations due to weather really don't affect us until end of first semester and maybe beginning of second semester during winter. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. Again, the course plan is to cover the following chapters in the order given. Here's the order. It's just a sequential order from 1 to 11. I'm skipping some parts of some of the chapters. We're going to cover probably 1 to 2, a new chapter every 1 to 2 weeks. So again, this is an approximate schedule where I give you the weeks that I'm hoping to put lecture videos online, and then these weeks that you see here on the schedule will be the weeks. Those weeks will have discussion worksheets that will be related to these topics. But again, the first chapter is just kind of covering the basic language of chemistry and science, measurements, sig figs, unit conversions. Then we'll go into talking about atoms and atomic structure and what molecules are and what ions are. Then we'll go into how do electrons behave in chemical reactions, how do atoms bond together, how are molecules structured, what do they look like, a little bit more detailed theory about bonding. There's things called Lewis structures and what are called hybrid orbitals we'll talk about. Chapters 6 and 7 will be a big part of the class where we actually talk about where you can calculate how much of a product you'll get from mixing a certain amount of reactant. I'm sure you did this in your high school chemistry class. It's called stoichiometry. Generally, it's the dreaded topic of every chemistry class, but some people find it rather straightforward. It is just unit conversion, basic algebra. There's no big secret to it. It's just, for some reason, it generally gives students a hard time. So hopefully I will explain it well and be helpful to you in learning this concept in particular. Ideal gas laws will be covered later in the class. We'll talk a little bit about heat exchange, what's called thermochemistry. You'll do an experiment called coffee cup calorimetry, where you'll use styrofoam cups to generate or to calculate the heat of a reaction. We're going to skip the topics in Chapter 9 that are dealing with ionic bond strength, lattice energy, and what's called the Bohr-Haber cycle. So again, that's maybe 5 pages only that we're skipping. In Chapter 10, we're going to skip the later parts of the Chapter 10. And in Chapter 11, we're only covering the beginning of it. So we're really only covering Chapters 1 through 9 in full, and 10 and 11 at the end of the class, we're covering about half those chapters. Here are the tentative exam dates that I've come up with. Week 4, end of September. Exam 1 will probably cover, I'm guessing, Chapters 1 and 2 and maybe a little bit of 3. Exam 2 in about 3 weeks later will probably cover Chapters 4 and 5. Exam 3, almost a month after that, will probably cover Chapters 6 and 7 and 8. And then the last exam will probably cover Chapters 9, 10, and 11. That's just a guess of mine, but each exam will probably cover 2 to 3 chapters. So quite a bit of material in each exam. And here is the tentative lab schedule that I've come up with. And again, you can see on some weeks we're going to actually do 2 labs, but don't worry too much. These weeks where we're doing 2 labs, the labs are fairly short. So you can get through, like the thickness of aluminum foil, you can get that done in about 30 minutes. And the separation of a mixture lab is probably an hour and a half or so. This next week where I have Lewis structures, a handout dealing with Lewis structures, you could actually take that home and work on it, but at least get it started during the lab. And this atomic emission lab is not that long. And the rest of the weeks, it's pretty much just 1 lab for a 3-hour time period. So there'll be more than enough time to finish the labs each week, and for many of you to actually finish it before you actually go home and maybe just be done with the lab for the week. So that's the course syllabus. It'll be online the whole semester if you want to go and review and just refresh your memory on the rules and what I expect of you. Good luck with everything, and I'm going to see you a week from this Wednesday. Don't forget, September 9th. And have a good week. And if you need to reach me about anything, just send me an email.